Hello, my friends. Luiz Lima here, directly and live from Orlando, Florida. It's Wednesday. It's 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It's time for Spiritism, a closer look, our weekly program right here on Kardec Radio. As always, I'd like to give you this information for comments and suggestions, to ask for subjects and topics to discuss. Please refer to the contact information you have on the bottom of your screen. Well, tonight we are going to take a closer look at what we call destructive calamities. Destructive calamities. We don't like those, of course. From time to time, they show up on the news, and sometimes it's even disturbing. It affects us, all of us, in a way or another. So we are going to take a closer look at the subject tonight. This is actually, let me show you here. This is part of the Spirits book. Okay, on part 3 of the Spirits book, which is the moral laws, there's a chapter 6, the law of destruction. Within this chapter, the law of destruction, there's a sub-item called destructive calamities, and Allan Kardec publishes, I think, 5 questions about the subject. We're not going to read the questions and answers. We're going to talk about more in a broader way. So let me start by saying this. We know that we're going to go slightly different than what you can probably expect. So let me get started this way. We know we are spirit and physical body. Okay, we are a combination of both. So we have a spirit life and we have a physical material life. We are intelligent principle and also physical matter. When you talk about destruction, any kind of destruction refers to anything or something material, not spiritual. You cannot associate the word destruction, destructive, or anything in those lines with the spirit, because the spirit is the intelligent principle and it is indestructible, immortal, never dies. However, material things, yes, they are subject to destruction as we understand. So destruction, when you look into the subject from the Spiritist point of view, considering the law of destruction, it is necessary everywhere where material life is placed above spirit life. Every time or everywhere we have material life being more important or get more attention than spirit life or spiritual life, we need destruction. One of these places is planet Earth. So from time to time, we need this disruption. Otherwise, we do not progress. You see, destruction, as in Spiritism, it ties into evolution. Destruction means something has to be transformed. It's a transformation that helps the intellectual and moral progress of the spirit. It is part of the natural law. Nobody's doing anything that shouldn't. Now, there are 2 things that we can consider when we hear the word destruction. There are 2 things to consider. First, what we call the necessary destruction. Yes, that's part of the natural law. That's the transformation style. Number 2, abusive destruction. That's a whole different ball game. That happens because of selfishness, pride, and spirit life is not in line with what it should. We're going to touch a little bit on this towards the end. But the Spirits book addresses necessary destruction, because there, for us spirits, it's hard to, see destruction, tsunamis and wars and stuff. It's hard, it's difficult. So how do we see that? So coming back to the very core, the definition, okay? By definition, destruction has to do with evolution. It ties into evolution. It puts an end to a cycle which automatically sets the beginning of the next cycle. It is a temporary event that is necessary to mark the end of a cycle and the beginning of the next one. It ties into evolution. If we don't have that kind of destruction, the necessary destruction, a little bit more about this shortly, if we don't understand this, we're just going to rebel all the time. So from a higher realm, destruction is a form of evolution. Evolution calls for destruction of things that we can't accept anymore because we are more advanced. We want to be more advanced intellectually, morally. So certain things in the past, it's like we say in English, a very typical phrase: out with the old, in with the new. That's what the necessary destruction addresses. So let's bring the idea to planet Earth. That's where we are. We know that the main purpose of life in general, not even on Earth, life in general, the main purpose of life is to achieve perfection. Jesus told us how to achieve perfection. It is achieved through the practice of love and charity. As you go along and perform acts of love, acts of charity, which comprise the main goal in life, that's how you advance. That's how we march towards perfection. Now, what happens with this in mind? What happens if we are on a place where there is lack of charity and lack of unconditional love, which is the love Jesus taught? So if we are in a place that there's a tremendous, if not 100%, almost 100% lack of charity and lack of unconditional love, how can we advance? Pay attention to this. It is necessary for the Creator to create situations that allows us, or even force us to be charitable, to practice charity, to practice unconditional love. There will be situations created by the Creator, by nature, that will put us in a situation that, this is happening. Oh my God, I need to do some charity here. I'm having a great opportunity, and we go for it. So the planet needs calamities from time to time because they set the pace. They open the doors for us to be able to create, or not create, but participate in doing charity, participate in feeling and interacting with people with unconditional love. So in every calamity that we see, people mobilize somehow, more for others, less for others, but somehow people are mobilized to help, or to say the least, feel compassion for those affected by whatever it was. You see, it's a necessary thing for us because we do not practice charity as we should. So situations need to be created where at one point we will be faced with situations where I put my two hands on my head and say, oh my God, this is happening. Let me help here. So we are forced in. That's why we need calamities. Calamities affect people in their pride and in their, it makes them feel their own weaknesses. And others have the opportunity to help and to serve, literally serve. That's how these opportunities are created, through these destructive calamities. Let's look at some examples of destructive calamities. We see these on the news from time to time, but going back in time, very many million years ago, the age of dinosaurs, they disappeared. Why? Because they served a purpose. That purpose, or whatever goal was achieved, they were not needed any longer. That's the destruction, the positive side of destruction we are trying to explain here. Here's another one, also back in time, the age of ice. Age of ice. It was necessary. The placement of water upon the surface of the planet changed because of the position and the cycles of the earth. So it changed. So yeah, there was a purpose into that. Tsunamis, earthquakes, hurricanes. For example, tsunamis, earthquakes, and hurricanes, to say the least, it triggers fundraising events, which is a form of material charity, but it is a form. It might not be, the best, the top type of charity, but it does help. It has a value. We need money at times, raise money to be able to serve others, to buy them food, to send them coats and clothes and whatever it was. So there's a purpose in those things. When we do this, when we go for a fundraising, when we, get together and try to do something on the positive side, yeah, that's what we need to be doing more often. If we don't do it, we're going to have calamities. So when you look at calamities, these destructive calamities, from the Spiritist point of view, we should not, and we cannot look at these events as punctual facts. They are part of a process. They happen within a context. We need to look at the context. Otherwise, we are going to be rebelling all the time. We need to understand this. For example, here's a simple thing. Let's say we just need to build another school for our kids, for example. So we find a place, we find the spot. This is a good spot. We're going to break the ground and start construction. When you break the ground, you're going to somehow, more or less, but somehow, you're going to interfere with nature. You're going to displace plants. You're going to maybe cut plants and trees. You're going to move grass from one place to another. There's interference, human interference upon nature. If you look at, if somebody, when you are breaking the ground, when you're cutting plants and so to clear off and start the construction, if somebody looks into that and say, they can say, these people are bad. They are doing a horrible thing with the plants and the grass and whatever else. You see, they're looking at this as punctual. But when the school is ready, it's going to be a great achievement. Now we have, a couple of hundred kids that can attend school. So there is a purpose behind all of this. We cannot look at calamities as a punctual fact, as a punctual event. These things are part of transformation. They are not plain destruction. Remember, we are talking about necessary destruction, natural law. So dinosaurs, they serve their purpose. Here's another one. Here's another form of destruction that happens every day under or before our very eyes, every single day. Human cells, they die all the time. They are destroyed and new cells are formed all the time. Our organs, our body has been replaced many times, depending on the organ, with new cells. We don't have the original cells that we had as a baby, for example, or as a young kid. Not anymore. And we don't look at our body right now. You're listening to me right now. You're not thinking, oh my God, I'm listening to this guy. Meanwhile, my body is being destroyed. My cells are dying. No. It's a process that became automated in our understanding because we understand there's a greater purpose. I cannot look into cells dying one by one, 70 trillion cells for each one of us, because we're going to go crazy. No, there's a purpose. The body grows, the body has its own cycles of evolution. Things have to happen to ourselves so we keep going as a physical body. Okay, the other thing is abusive destruction. That's a whole different ball game. There is no nobility in its intent. These are destruction. It refers to destruction caused by us, by humans, with the sole purpose of personal interest, personal reason, nothing else. There is no greater purpose into this. I just need to, for example, wars. I just need to declare war and destroy those guys because I want this and that and that. And that's it. Nothing good comes out of it. There is no noble purpose. 9/11, abusive destruction. And there's one that we had one of our programs about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we are going to come back to the subject because I promised, and we will. Cancel culture. It's a form of destruction with no other purpose than I am better than you are. Period. We're not going to stick to cancel culture today, but it's a form of abusive destruction. The Spirit's book addresses the law of destruction, not abusive. I'm just bringing them up so you can see the difference. You can see what I'm saying. Again, we cannot look at calamities as manifested cruelty. This is a human perspective. So when we look at over the news, for example, on a hurricane, we cannot say God is punishing those people. There is no punishment. There is no cruelty as in manifested cruelty. Look from a higher perspective. This is not cruelty. This is transformation. The world must evolve. So for that to happen, we need these events that we call calamities or catastrophes, whatever you want to call them. We usually see them as punishment, but that's due to our inability to comprehend and even value spirit life. So we look at material life and say, there's a lot of destruction here. People are dying, physical death. But look at the other side, the spirit life. We can't forget, especially us, spiritists. It has to be clear to us. Calamities are part of the spirit life experience. They are. They will be incorporated into our own spiritual history once we get past them. They will be part as a purpose into all of this. You see, some of these events, they will convert competition into cooperation. So two societies, two groups, two countries, if they're competing and some calamity takes place, some disaster takes place, they will stop that and cooperate with each other, trying to, get out of the situation, get the best out of it. So you see, these, I see these destructive calamities as milestones. They are milestones. They define points of elevation of the soul. Every time we put our two hands on our heads and say, oh my God, this is a difficult situation, complicated, whatever these people on the other side of the planet are going through. Let me help a little bit. I can't physically be present, but there are ways to help. We can send a little bit of money. We can send non-perishable, items. That's help too. That does help. So in question 737 of the Spirits book, Allan Kardec asks the spirits, for what purpose does God inflict humankind with destructive calamities? Very good question. What's the purpose of all of this? And the answer is short and straightforward. To impel them spirits, right, us, to impel them to progress more quickly. How do we progress more quickly? How do we progress? Love and charity. How do we progress more quickly? Instead of waiting 4 incarnations, 4 lifetimes to do a charity, I'm going to be forced to do one now. That's what the answer is. In the Spirit's word, I'm reading. I'm not saying, I'm reading, so I'm bringing to you exact. To impel them to progress more quickly. I don't think it can be any more clear than that. So there is no idea of punishment behind it. There is no point in setting up like a revolt or rebellion against all of these things. Of course, we're going to be saddened by these events, situations like this, but praying always helps. Praying always helps. Attacking God or canceling God, that doesn't do anything. That is destructive towards ourselves if we do this. If we see those things as punishment, if we rebel and revolt, we are destroying ourselves. So instead of offsetting the destruction, we're making it worse. And I'll tell you what, all of this that I'm saying is very, very clear in Spiritism. Right here, Spirit's book. That's where it all starts, the Spiritist philosophy. I just remember we had this past week, one of the great celebrities in the world. I don't know if you follow soccer games, but Brazilian soccer player Pelé, he died at 82 this past week. And of course, a lot of biographies and different stories come up. That's very common when a celebrity passes away. So one of the stories that was really interesting is the club he was playing for in 1967 was invited to do a tour, play several games, a tour throughout Africa, several countries in Africa. One of these countries was Nigeria. So usually, because you're going to another continent in another country, so this is prepared and planned in advance, a year and a half, 2 years prior to the actual date. So they planned everything. The club, the team he was playing for, had all the dates set up, all the schedule ready. When it got time to go, to actually travel and do, in one of the cities where one of the games was planned to be take place, city in Nigeria called Benin. Uh, they were going through a tremendous, horrible civil war, lots of death, uh, uh, killing children and women, horrible, absolutely horrible. So the club, the team said, well, if you think about it, it makes no sense for us to go because the whole purpose of all of that is to show the game, how beautiful we can play, how nice and how fun it is, open our hearts to the sports, uh, so they said, let's just cancel this. So the government said, no, we're not going to cancel. They got together with their enemies at the time. I'm just going to call them enemies. The political situation doesn't really matter. So the government said, listen, Pele and his club is coming here. Supposedly they're going to be here in 48 hours. If we do not stop what we're doing here, all this war, all this civil war, this killing and all of those, they're not going to come in. And we are going to lose the opportunity to see the greatest of all play ever. Maybe the one time only he's going to make it to our country, to our city. So everybody like, wow, that's an interesting point of view. So they got together and they signed a peace treaty, temporary peace treaty. So the players could come into the city, play the game, and everybody from both ends of the civil war, friends and foes, could be sitting side by side at the stadium to watch the game. This is incredible. So you see, in the middle of a lot of destruction, we find a purpose. And when the game took place, the Civil War stopped for supposedly 48 hours, but it never got back to be the same intensity that it was before because it kind of didn't make sense anymore. People walked out of the stadium and say, well, my God, what I saw is really intense in terms of positive. I saw such a game, such a beautiful thing. So you see, this war kind of it didn't end. You would be wrong to say that it ended, but it took a different turn. It wasn't so bad as it was before. So it kind of, in a way, partially at least, it converted competition into cooperation. Now that war, just to make my point, was not within the law of destruction. That was an abusive destruction. It's fire set by men to kill men. But still, you see, the higher realm found a way to make things take a different route and make it not as bad as it could have been. I just remember this as I'm talking to you. Just came to my mind because I've been reading about him, the Pelé, the Brazilian soccer player. Anyhow, no destruction, no abusive destruction, and calamities. They are not punishment. God is not punishing anybody. Revolting is no point. Makes no sense. Be saddened, yes, but pray for those who are undergoing those circumstances. So thank you very much for watching and being with us tonight. Destructive Calamities, Spirit's book, once again, part 3, The Moral Laws, chapter 6, The Law of Destruction. Thanks so much. We are going to be here next week for another Spiritism, a closer look. Be well.